Welcome to Momspresso's CMO's Roundtable, the second in the series of roundtable discussions on the definitive guide to the new age digital mom, a comprehensive study conducted by Momspresso and Omax that deep dives into what I'm sure you will all agree is an extremely interesting digital transformation of the journey of motherhood. As India's largest content platform for moms, Momspresso has been in the driving seat of this digital transformation, and we have been keen observers as well. We combined our expertise and nuanced understanding of the world of moms with the vast domain experience of Omax in the area of kids and moms. And together in this partnership, we bring you the largest ever study on the changing codes of motherhood. So what are some of these transformative trends and how can brands benefit from studying them? Let's find out from our panel. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce them to you. Let me start with Trupti Bhandari. She's been a global business leader with global majors such as GSK, Reckitt Benckiser, Pfizer, Bausch & Lomb. But 24 years of blue chip corporate experience aside, Trupti is also a certified life and executive coach with a focus on consciousness coaching. Can't wait to hear your perspectives, Trupti.
Thanks, Parul.
Please also welcome Ruchira Jetli. Ruchira is the CMO India at HMD Global. She's an FMCG professional with over 21 years of experience with various global majors like Unilever, PepsiCo and DSM. But when she's not scaling up one-line briefs to the biggest brands, she's working on her fitness and also exercising her vocal cords most melodiously. Please also welcome Meghna Apparao. She's the Chief Business Officer at Licious. She's a seasoned professional with almost 20 years of experience with giants such as Godrej, Amazon, and Unilever. Among her many accomplishments are the Chevening Fellowship to Oxford University, and she continues to work in the area of establishing an equitable and fair work environment, particularly in the context of gender balance. Our partners in this study, Priya Lobo, CEO of Omax Compass. Priya has been with Omax for more than 25 years and is a true master of the art of understanding consumers. When she's not analyzing consumer behavior, she's an adventure junkie, happiest at the top of a mountain or deep down exploring a seabed. Welcome to all of you, and I'm sure you're as eager as I am to begin this discussion. So let's roll straight into the first question. And my first question is to you, Meghna. When we spoke last year, you had donated your hair for wigs to privileged cancer patients. I remember you talking about being on the edge, not quite sure about shaving your head or just going really short. And then your teenager encouraged you with, "Mom, go big or go home." So, this kind of role reversal where moms are learning so much from their children, this is one of the most interesting insights in the report, how moms have to be on a learning curve always. How do you relate with this role reversal?
I think that's a very, I'm very impressed that all the people that you meet, Parul, you still remember that.
But of course.
So the rest of you on this call, I wanted to do something beginning of last year actually, and to shave my head and donate it for a cause. And my kids were like very against it, saying, you look weird and this and that and all of that. And I was telling my kids, you know what, maybe I'll just go like super short so I can still donate all the hair. But I won't shave my head. That's my teenage daughter just gives me, that typical teenager's look of kind of disdain and a frown and says that, what's the fuss all about? You want it, go big or go. And I'm putting myself out there. At that time, I didn't even understand what she meant. Yeah, I had to quickly Google and say, what is teen? And I was, and after that, they were really supportive. Yeah, so I took them to the salon. The shaving my head happened, and someone declared that my eyes stand out so beautifully, and all kinds of other stuff which I never imagined. But all in all, I think it was very, very eye opening to me. That I got confidence from my daughter in taking that last step. And I think that has remained and she's about 15. I have a younger one who's now 12. And through this year, I would say certainly it keeps happening a lot. Yeah, because I think our kids today, and I'm not saying this only because I have older kids, even younger kids, they're just so much more curious and unbiased about all the information that they process, that if you have a very direct relationship with them, they will just tell you as it is, and that's it. Yeah. And very interestingly, while working from home largely through this lockdown period, and you're doing a lot of calls, yeah, so my kids are able to, while they don't recognize the content of what I'm talking, based on the tone of my voice and what and how I say, they're actually giving me feedback, and I'm very, very conscious about it. Also, because while working virtually, this is the only way you engage. So the laugh at the end of the conversation, or the come, let's go have coffee and we'll just chill, is not happening. So I think these are just simple instances, and I can go on endlessly about social media and how I'm the complete dodo in that as per them. And every single day I learn kind of new things. So yeah, I think it's definitely a significant part of my learning as a person. This is not even as a mother. The openness, curiosity, and the unbiased view that they bring to life, which is not colored by anything else. So yeah.
I think that's the best point, in fact, in this context, because they have that unbiased view still, and wait till they get out into the big bad world fully, and then things will change for sure. Trupti, my next question is for you. You know, this uncanny power that kids have around their parents. They know the right buttons to press, and they've learned how to apply the right pester power. How do you handle that balance between authority and indulgence?
Right. So I have two girls. One is 20 and the other is 13. And slightly different stages of their lives, And yeah, it's not what it used to be earlier, where the mother or the father said, this is how it's to be done, and you accept it, We've seen it across that now. It's a very balanced relationship where you give a lot of respect to your child. There is an equal say they have in the decision making. And in fact, even in the food industry that I work in, we find that even on our brands, the pester power is going up so much that it is never sufficient to just talk to the mom and convince her on your product. Most of the times the mom is the gatekeeper, who just has a veto to say no, but the decision is made by the child. And in fact, again, interestingly, the pester power has grown by about 25% in the last 5 years, when we do research with kids and moms. And I see all that all the time in my house as well. They have a say in everything, not only things which they are direct consumers of, but even things like, if there's a TV to be bought in the house, if there's a fridge, there's a car, even a mobile phone which I'm going to use or my husband is going to use is decided by the child, So I think they are far more informed than earlier, and therefore you tend to accept what they're saying. There is a lot of confidence with the way they deal with things, and I think that's something as parents we learn from them, the way they are aware, and like Meghna said, they are very accepting, very open, and really very knowledgeable thanks to the social media. And of course it does have its problems, but definitely it just ends them informing them far more than what we would be probably in our busy hectic lives. So you tend to give their opinion that much more respect. And, moms also try to play that bit, wherein you choose your battles. You try to accept certain things where the kids do exercise their power, and there are certain things where the mom would try to give in, and the places where she would try to really hold the rein. So I think it's a very interesting balance that a mother and a father need to constantly maintain with the kids. And I think all moms and all fathers must be dealing with it. So it's a great time, and it's a great learning for parents as well.
And this is really what we're talking about, the changing face of motherhood. My next question is for you, Ruchira, and I know that every parent watching this will love me for bringing it up, because it's an eternal pain point, and currently it's a universal issue: screen time. Again, when to battle about screen time, when to curtail it, when to just let it be. Lockdown time is a completely different animal. In fact, one cannot keep quotas at this time. Please give us some magic guidelines there. How are you handling it?
Yeah, well, I wish I had the guidelines. Right now, we're all with different stages. We've all got daughters, by the way, which is interesting. My daughter's 18. She's in that middle point right now, trying to figure out what her results are going to be like, if her college is going to open. So there's also a lot of stress. There's a lot of angst. A lot of kids are going through that as well, because they do not like being at home necessarily. They want to be out, maybe in school, classes, meeting their friends, being socially active, and that's all been just cut off, and that's causing a lot of stress amongst kids. And how they're compensating is by spending more time on screens, and whether it's a mobile device, whether it's a computer screen. So now the challenge here is you've literally got a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation on screens today. On the one hand, the screen was the monster. Moms would say, no screen time, I'm limiting it 1 hour or whatever, especially if you have a younger child. But now the same moms are saying, hey, your homework's coming on a screen. Your classes are going to happen on Zoom or on Google Meet. Your research for whatever work you need to do, it's not going to happen with the teacher instructing you in school. It's probably going to be Khan's Academy or Byju's or whatever it is, right? The projects, how do I keep you engaged? Even if you want to make a recipe, should we go onto YouTube and check for a recipe? So suddenly you're opening up access versus limiting screen time. And the contradiction is like 180 degree, turn, literally on that protractor in school if you go from one end to the other, So it's like saying that, okay, so how do you manage it? And this is true in a context where it is going to be a prolonged period of maybe distancing. There is going to be no change. And plus, whatever I understand of education particularly is that this is a tectonic shift. We're never going to go back to a screen-free life or a device-free life for children. So, this is something that is becoming a huge concern. The last part is you cannot have good physical and mental health by sitting in front of a screen. You have to get out and about. You have to be able to do things, get active, engage socially, right? And a lot of the mental health issues that people see that are going to come out of this lockdown are because of just the lack of one, society, and two, the ability to go out into nature and into the open. So can you imagine all of that coming together? It's a perfect storm. And frankly, if I was a mom of a younger kid today, and I'm talking about a kid between the age of 8 and 12 or 15, I would have huge concerns because I'd see the positives, but I'd equally be really concerned on the negative ramifications of spending too much time into a device, gaming, etc. And these have been designed to really soak up your concentration and soak up your attention, right? So a couple of things that are happening, and this is stuff that I talk about with friends, with cousins, with family members across the world, in fact, because everyone is battling with this. So the good news is you're not alone, first of all. There's a lot of stuff that goes on outside, which is, which people are talking about experiences and how they're coping, particularly with younger kids. I think it's not, less so with just the older ones. The one way of looking at it is there is learning time and there's entertainment time. And how do you balance the two? How can you tell your child that they should limit time on entertainment when you're streaming Netflix constantly? And how do you also tell them that, yeah, this is learning time and that's good for you, but everything else that you do outside of it's not good for you. So I think it's about having honest conversations. You heard it from Meghna, you heard it from Tripti as well. You can't mandate. You have to have a conversation. You have to share with people, with your children, and have honest conversations to say, how are we going to, how are you going to negotiate this situation? Have a family meeting, have a family conference to say, all of us need to do things together. Do we play some board games together? And at the same time, how do I help you do your assignments, your research work? Can you do some classes on coding? Because today that's like it is that thing which we know is going to make a difference to the way our kids perform, whether in school or later in life. And how do you also use social media? I think that is going to be the big one. How do you educate them, one, not to get onto social media before they're able to, because they'll have access if they have your device, if they have your laptop. And at the same time, have a healthy sense of self and relationships coming through it. So it is, oh my God, you can just go on about this forever. I mean, this could be a whole, and then there'd be some more learning, and then we'd still have more to discuss. So, but it is an interesting time, and you have to be able to trust it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. We're not going back to the days of no gadgets. This is it. This is our life now, and we need to learn how to negotiate that. And like you said, you have to find the balance within your own system and what works for you best. But you're so right about social media that there's a lot that can be used productively and positively. And we will come into that because even in this discussion, social media holds a very important place. But before that, I have a question for Priya. And Priya, one of the insights that we've had in this report is, again, to do with the continuing this conversation of the changing face of motherhood and how we're learning so much from our children, is also our position as far as they are concerned. And we become more of a frenemy than, the authority figure. So I'd like to hear from you how you relate that with your experiences.
Yeah. Your question is very interesting. And for a person who has studied psychology, like when I had my daughter's 17, it was very, very important that how would I lay the basis of our relationship, both my husband and I. And one thing we said is, we're going to keep it real. We are not going to put on this avatar saying that we are the best, and we are human beings after all. We have our ups and we have our downs. And in the process, we said that she could ask us any question, because as a society, we have grown up with not asking questions to our parents. We would never be encouraged. And another thing, she could ask me anything about sexuality, about her body, her sense of herself, discuss what was going on with her friends without us being non-judgmental. And as you sow the seeds of non-judgmental, as parents, our main role and job is a nurturing environment, correct? Warm-heartedness, love, compassion, gratitude. Those are the seeds you sow very early on. And I think that has really held us in good stead even during lockdown, right? I've heard families getting on each other's nerves. I'm sure it's happened to all of us as well. But it kept us tight together because we had honest, real conversations. Like Meghna said, tone of voice, if I was being a little nasty at times, or she would say, Ma, you're being a little mean. And also sharing the angst that we are going through during lockdown. And I think that can only happen when you have a balanced relationship, like Trupti said. The balance starts when you're small, and building those strong foundations are things that parenting styles are all about. Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And that has to start much earlier. You can't decide when the kids are teens and when things have started to go downhill. You can't suddenly decide that time that, okay, I need to communicate. That has to be an open line right from the beginning. And the earlier we started, the better. I think we've all learned from experience. So the next round of questions is really to do with social media, and we've already talked about it, we brought it up, and we know that social media is definitely responsible for a large part of the digital transformation that we've been talking about. Meghna, let me start with you. I have a specific question for you. This new dependence on social media se poochte hain, as a lot of moms have said. Moms are relying heavily on that online knowledge khazana to answer their queries about the growth and development of their children. How have you seen this aspect, relying on knowledge, the knowledge bank online? How have you seen this aspect influencing their purchase decisions?
So actually, Parul, it's a massive input that people are looking for today. Yeah? Previously, even all of us actually, how did we buy stuff? Yeah, we went to the store, we maybe asked a few close friends or someone who we kind of depended on, right? One or two people, and then you would go ahead and do something. But today, that's really not the case. And I think it happens for two reasons. One is because that information is just out there and available. But the information which is out there and available is just humongous and often at contrast to each other. Yeah, you hear something good, you hear something bad, then you hear something even more confusing, and by the end of it, you really don't know what's happening. So I think what people are doing, people like us as well as all the consumers that you're referring to, are finding those trusted sources of information, saying who do I trust and who should I ask for. Yeah. It may be a particular website that you shop on and you have had a good experience and then you trust them. Or it could be platforms like Momspresso itself, wherein I put my question out there and I trust this community will come back to me with the right response. So I think that this is definitely something that is going to exist. The second thing is, I think the depth of information that people are looking for increased. So if I look at my mom, when she brought us up, she would say, I'm using a meat reference. That's my favorite food. She would say, fish is good for health. So you must eat fish a few times a day. I was not few times, a few times a week. I was having a conversation with a cousin of mine. She's also a mom with young kids over the weekend on something, and she was telling me I don't eat X type of fish because you know what? It doesn't have enough omega-3 acids and something else. And I work in this industry. On that conversation, she knew more about a particular dimension than even I did. So my question to her was like, why are you looking for this information? Like, this is so detailed and so specific. She's like, no, it's important that I know everything that my child eats, and I want to search that information out and be sure that I'm making the right choice. And I saw this in the report that you guys had shared. As kids are younger, how this nutritional information is more important. The two parts to this. One is people are looking, but there's also so much information out there. So how do we find the right trusted sources and bring both those together? So I think as brands and marketers, what we are all trying to do is to create our own information pool. You know, watch out for Google Analytics. What are people looking for? And then put out information which marries and ties in into that, as well as partnering a lot with folks like yourselves who have done such a brilliant job of building a community to be able to put the right sources of truth out. So I don't see it only as a, you know, tell people that my brand is awesome kind of version. I think it's really important to tell people the truth and tell them how to make the right choice. And an honest brand will stand up and say, I do this, but I don't do this also. So I think it will challenge us, but it will also earn us the right trust and foundation. Because the reality today is, even if you don't tell them, they're going to figure it out. So they may as well hear from you in that sense. So it's a very big learning journey and a very important one to build brands that are trustworthy and will stand the test.
You know, it's interesting you talk about trust and integrity, because that's again another very important aspect that comes out in the report, that consumers are you know, not quite trusting brands completely, and especially their advertising, their claims. So there is this question that how do we know what is true and what is not, and that is where that credibility issue comes in. Megha, I have another sub question for you, especially since you mentioned meats, and you know, it's true that online behavior has changed, and you know, meats is not something one would have ever imagined buying online previously. So how much of that has to do with, you know, social media, getting your information online? How has that behavior changed from a physical shop to going online and shopping?
You're absolutely right, Parul. So that everyone knows, I joined Licious literally when lockdown started. Yeah, so I'm one of those people who began a new job the day lockdown began. Yeah, I will write a book about it someday. Absolutely fascinating is Licious is a brand which is built on quality and safety and tasting food. Yeah, food has to taste great for us, irrespective of everything else, right? But quality and safety is the fundamental foundation. You won't believe it, in the past 3 months, we have more than doubled close to tripled what we sell on our platform. We did not anticipate it going into lockdown. But I think the revelation that came to us as we see this data and information is that in this age, people are looking for that quality, safe, taste. All of these things are so important that if you build your brand with check boxes on that, you're really going to have a wild run through this phase. And I would dwell upon that, you know, quality and safety parameter. And when I say quality and safety, going back to what I said the first time, it's not just about saying it, but it's also saying what you do and what you don't do, what you can do and what you cannot do. So much more about, and the mantra that we're using internally is that we have to be honest and transparent. There's nothing called perfection. Yeah. So each of us wants something slightly different, but we will be honest and transparent. And I think Licious is a really good example how that's panning out in people's psyche. And going to your part about, Parul, the second part, which says, this is something which is more personalized, like buying meat, I make my choice of exactly what cut type, etc. I want, and how are people transforming. I think there is the consumer side to it, and there's the role of us as businesses. The role of us as businesses is we just actively look at exactly what people are searching for and listening to their voices to very quickly put together things that we see people want, but we don't yet have. So one of the big things that we guys did was build out a ready to cook portfolio. So lots of marinated stuff, yeah? Because end of the day, our cooking capabilities will stop at some point, right? And then you still want that taste of a Oriental cuisine, a continental cuisine, a mutton run, something a bit more special, but you're not feeling quite up to it. So we said we'll create that range. For two reasons, people will feel comfortable. One is because everything is packed and vacuum packed and sealed inside a factory, so nobody is touching it through the process. So it reaches you in a fully packed condition. No one has actually touched that pack. Yeah, you get to the pack and everything inside is fully safe. The second thing is you're making it easy and building on that taste palette. They're cooking it at home. Yeah, so one of my friends told me this: anything I take and boil it in a pan at 100 degrees, I feel that everything inside it, which is bad, is kind of dead. She's not very wrong, actually. Yeah, which is why this is different from us ordering in from just outside, right? That extra layer of safety comes in from this experience. So we picked this up and it's doing so well. Yeah, so well. It was a tiny business before, but really rocking now. And I'll give you one last example. The other thing was like ready to eat foods. When you find the right mix of, because as parents, we're very careful, right? Processed food, preservatives, what do we give? At the same time, there is ease. The same thing happened with our ready-to-eat portfolio. We do something called meat spreads. It's a new category that we're building, and it has about 30-40% meat in it, but it lasts for a month. This was a fabulous opportunity that consumers latched onto because of lockdown, containment zones, delivery being on and off. You're not really certain. And we have the kids who are waiting for their snacks constantly, right? So my kid actually invented this one. We didn't even know it. So she took the chicken spread and put it onto nachos and says that this is chicken nachos now for me. We thought it can be used as a spread or a roll. So these are all insights for us as marketers. Just be hyper observant. There are new trends which usually take time to build, like you have like a year, and I think Ruchira has worked a lot in the food industry too. You'll see a long period of time. The massive shift is these trends are just catching on really snappily and really quickly. So how do we keep our eyes and ears open, both as people as well as brand builders, to just latch on to those and ride on that? So I think it's very, very exciting, also very challenging, of course.
For sure, absolutely. Trupti, I'm going to pick on a point that Meghna had made about nutrition. And, our report says clearly that mums of younger kids are definitely more attuned towards looking for nutrition-led based information online, and then, taking care of that as far as their child is concerned. Being aware and having the knowledge is one thing, and that translating into consumer behavior and making nutritious choices is another. How have you seen this trend?
Yeah, so absolutely, moms are far more informed, and there are a lot more avenues, for them to get information. So it's not just their parents and their in-laws, but it is a whole lot of friends, the community that they move in, the social community, and one finds that therefore the brand has to play a bigger role in the whole thing. Earlier, if a brand made a claim, it was taken as it is, So we said you are 2 times stronger and, 5 times more calcium. That was it, and the mom bought it about 10, 12 years back. But today, the claims are they become a hygiene, most brands are talking about it. To bring in credibility, you actually need a lot more endorsement. One is probably from experts, and the other, which is even more important, is from people they trust, which is their friends, their community, and sometimes social channels like Espresso, for instance, where they can freely converse. What we found is, which is why actually the requirement of our nutritional delivery had to go up furthermore. You had to give an explanation everywhere of how a particular product was designed for a particular age group. So there was a product which works for 2 years, a product which works from 2 to 6 years, and 6 to 10 years, etc. How are they different? And you had to convince the mom on the rational part, as well as, emotionally you had to tie her in. So it became a little more difficult than it used to be earlier. Also, because they are so well read, there is a lot of DIY that goes around, do it yourself. So if they thought that, okay, what is an HFD? An HFD is essentially is going to be a mix of some nuts and some grains. Might as well bring it from my kitchen, So you took some almonds and some cashews and a lot of millets, and you ground them together and use them just to add into your into the child's milk. and they thought that the job was done. So we found that a lot of this DIY was increasing. So it was important to tell them that what is it about your brand that they cannot recreate in the kitchen, and therefore, why is it that this nutritional delivery is superior? Not only from a physical delivery and a product perspective, but even from a brand perspective. You need to come out as somebody who understands this life stage, because it is not only about their nutrition, but everything that happens around them during this period, during the child. So the growth, the mental growth, the societal, the emotional growth, about how to behave. If the brand can actually connect with the mom in those areas, then she knows that this is a brand which understands me, my child, and the life stage that both of us are in. And that's where you can actually really engage them. So it's not an easy thing, easier said than done, but I think slowly and steadily brands are moving towards that. And you find that when you do these things, you really see the benefit of the moms, not just buying the product, but buying into you. And then the loyalty lasts longer.
There again, the whole point about integrity and how moms are really waiting for brands to prove that to them. Ruchira, my next question is to you. And, we've talked about digital addiction, we've talked about screen time, but really the point is, like you mentioned, that, this is a world that we all need to accept, and there is a lot more digital attachment that has happened, and both with adults as well as with kids. I'm not just going to say that this is a child-centric problem or opportunity, both ways. From the opportunity point of view, what do you think are the long-term outcomes, and what do brands need to watch out for, especially in the mother and child space?
So, the outcomes for us, actually, the way they're playing out is it's actually happening as we speak. Suddenly you're seeing parents rushing out to get a second or a third device in their house because they don't want to give up their phone 24/7 to their child, and they've got WhatsApp homework assignments, they've got teachers and Zoom calls, and the number of devices in a house suddenly have become, everyone has to have their own. So the opportunity, I think, is, there's no question. And we're seeing that across. I think Microsoft sold out on all their Surface devices, I think, in a week or something like that. So I think that's not the challenge. The challenge that comes is, I'm going to pick up from what Meghna and Trupti have both said. One is on safety. How do I know that I can keep my child safe while they are on this medium? The opportunity is huge. The learning is huge. The material today is huge. And everyone's offering these lovely online courses, summer camps, ways of learning. How do I make sure that my child is safe in that environment? Physical safety is something that we used to ensure. So many moms will go and be there, and watch these camps and, pick up and drop their children. How do I ensure that my child is not being either bullied or stalked or whatever? So one is that. The second one that Trupti also spoke about is, can I talk to someone and get tips on how to manage? Because we're all learning. This is not something that any of us have grown up with. This is not something that our parents know about. This is not even something that, with all respect, my mom's a clinical psychologist, but she doesn't get it. I mean, sometimes I have to remind her that she needs to put the phone down herself, right? Because she's constantly on WhatsApp and calls of what happened here and what. You're like, no, just keep it down. If you don't answer a phone call, it's not the end of the world. So how do you manage in this scenario? And, it's sometimes reaching out to groups like Momspresso, talking about it with your with people who understand this, with people who are trained to understand and isolate really what's momentary and what could be more addictive. And it's a terrible word, but it's true. It's how you actually deal with all of these things. I think, again, all of us spoke about it, being a friend and not just being a voice of authority, walking with them in their shoes and also helping them understand. What does it mean for a brand? It means exactly the same thing. What are brands? Brands, at the end of the day, are a companion in your journey of decision making, right? You've got certain decisions you want to make. What soap do I buy, or what fabric, what whitener do I use, or what meat do I buy? And I do, by the way, I was an early adopter on Licious, Meghna, so we need to chat about that separately. But I'm like, so what is a brand? It helps you make the choice. It reassures you by telling you that the values that you want are the values that the brand has, and it tells you about why, therefore, it is a safe choice. So that's like a friend, and that's what a brand has to do in this period. And if you can do that honestly, authentically, we do not make up stories about what we do and don't do. We will never put out fake photos. We'll never put out fake reviews and stuff like that, right? And it means that, by the way, we get slammed a lot sometimes, because sometimes people don't agree with your view of the world and why, you should charge a certain amount or not charge a certain amount, or put a certain, I don't know, color or not put a color. It's fine. I mean, that's the real world. So it's been, for us, the lockdown, actually what started out as a huge, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive? How will we continue to communicate, most importantly, with the people who are most important to us? Not just family, but also our consumers as a marketer. How do you continue to do that? And what it's turned out at the end of the funnel is, if you can just stay close to what the consumers want to know and say it in an honest, authentic way, in a safe zone, you'll probably come out of it fine. I mean, it sounds like a lot of motherhood and apple pie, but it really was as simple as that for me.
Yeah, I love the way you've integrated the world that we are living in, and the same rules apply. The same rules that we're using for our children to understand what they need is what we are using for consumers as marketers. So I love the way you intertwine those two worlds. Priya, I'd like you to bring out an insight from the study, and we've already discussed quite a few, but I'd like you to pinpoint, a key point that brands are missing out on when they're talking to moms.
Yeah, I think this is a fabulous question, because one of the things that, we use the word gatekeeper, correct?
Yes.
And I think I heard some narrative where mom said that, sometimes we become invisible, right? Because the brands only talk to us because they want to get to the child. Yeah. And I think recognizing them as individuals, and that's a strong narrative that came out in this study, is that me as a woman, because she herself is going through this dilemma where she has to raise a super achiever child, but she also has to be this fabulous mom. And I think that's an interesting thread for brands to pick up, because when we call her a gatekeeper, it's almost like she's invisible, right? And she's only needed because you want her attention where her child is concerned. And I think that's a fabulous thread for lots of brands and marketers to look at and see how you can talk to her as a person as well. And that's a thought that I want to leave you all with, because I think we're all people who have been in this business for the last 25 years. Meghna, when you spoke about meats, I remember I worked on Real Good Chicken, and the journey of how to get you to buy a brand, right? You always went to the cold storage or to that, and it brought a smile to my face, because I think Licious is in that curve. How do you build authenticity? How do you talk to the woman? How do you talk to the not only as a mother, but as a woman who, hands up painting during lockdown, and she wants to cook a really fabulous treat for herself and her family. I want to know, as brands, how are we looking at, we all say our playbooks have gone out of the window, correct, at this time. So how each one of you is looking at lockdown and as brands, in terms of leadership and the messages that you're putting out?
It's a great question, because when we started out into lockdown, in fact, globally, we had a mandate saying that we are not going to, leverage or milk the situation to turn around and say, rush out and buy yourself this, that, and the other, because you need to be connected. In fact, we said we're going to be empathetic and we're going to be with consumers on their journey, and in fact, help them discover experiences that can help them enjoy this. So we actually partnered with Qualcomm, who is our strategic partner. They manufacture chipsets, and a lot of the work they do with us is how do we deliver great experiences. So we said, instead of going on about experiences, what if we were to just say, take pictures of what's keeping you engaged in lockdown? And we found huge. So we've got a community of Nokia enthusiasts who are over about 3.5 million in terms of unique consumers just in India. And with them, we did stuff like shoot your pet, and really cool stuff, because pets can be tremendously stress busting in, looking at pets around, what you cooked, what are the new recipes you want to share with the world, your family, your home, and exploring your home in different ways. So it was about saying, hey, in this time when you're feeling closeted, when you're feeling cut off, can we make the world expand for you wherever you are? And do it in a way. So we actually cut off all our media. We said we're not going to advertise. We're not going to talk to consumers the way we used to, saying this phone, that, buy, etc. It's the wrong time to do it. Instead, we'll just kind of partner them on building experiences that maybe they can look back at and say, guess what? I learned something and I did something.
And for us, what we saw is, as we have heard on the conversation already, that cooking had become this massive stress buster. Personally speaking, I think as working women, those of us, cooking usually, not cooking, but what will cook at home is usually the stress factor. You know, what will everyone eat, and get the right thing out there and mix that up and plan the menus. But I think in lockdown, cooking, we realized, has actually become an outlet. It's a stress buster for not just the ones who love cooking, but like I said, this family activity, everyone's getting into it. Stereotypically, if the dad has not been involved, even he had to do some part of it. So we just picked that up and said we'll participate in that conversation. Again, lots of people joined in, and it felt so real, because this was touching into a real moment as people were sensing and feeling this. We also got some very cute kid videos, not just girls, even boys. So I think what we decided to do as a brand, like I said earlier, and what Trupti was saying, for things that people are looking for, just make sure that the right information in a very honest manner is available. And the second is just find these light-hearted moments. We decided the world is already going through so much distress. Every time we turn on a news channel, there's just so much negativity. So we said we are not going to go down that path. We are just going to pick the happy moments and try and make them happier. It's a line, so you can't be seen celebrating. So I've shared with you guys that our business actually did very well. But we took a call for the past 2 months saying we are not going to go and talk about that dimension, because it doesn't seem right. Everyone else is going through a tough time. So I think some of these things are deeply internal in terms of how you participate in this conversation. Another dimension, completely different on mental health, that I would like to bring up, actually, to even hear from you guys, is how are people managing home and work while sitting at home? Yeah, so I think that has definitely been a challenge. I don't think it's a challenge only for the working mom. It's also the challenge of the mom who has to now manage 6 people kind of on her head all the time. So I think that is definitely going to be causing stress to all of us. It does to me too. So I think that's the part that we are going to have to, evolve and figure out.
Yeah, that's the part of the broadening scope of the new age digital mom, really. I mean, doing so much more. During lockdown, the onus of doing all of that has been on the mum. The mental load on the mum remains higher, and actually it's gone higher than ever. It's always been on the mom, but right now it's, to put together everything, to make sure that you've got your rations in place. I think that was my biggest tension in the first few days, to just make sure there's enough atta, dal and chawal for, the at least the next, till the next lockdown. Okay. Moving to you, Trupti. I'd like to highlight one of the key opportunity areas identified in the report, and I would love to hear your perspectives on that the pre-teen teen age group is commonly missed out by most marketeers. That's come out very strongly, in fact. And, for example, when you take toiletries as an example, you have a baby range, which is soft and gentle and safe. And then you have the adults range, which is, makes you feel good and gets you jobs and, gets you whatever else that you need. But what about those kids in between, who are not quite babies and who are not quite grown up there? And I mean, forget about toiletries. Don't even get me started on clothes. That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, so I think that is a very, very, very relevant point, because when typically brand segment, there's toddlers, there are kids, and there are adults. And the fact of the matter is, let me say people, not kids. People from the age group 10 to 18 actually behave very differently. They are different physically, they are different emotionally, they have a societal difference, the imagery they need to carry. So actually the needs are very, very different. But when you tend to bucket them, either you bucket them with the kids, which is the 10 and 11 go into the kids, and the older ones go into adults. Now, the fact of the matter is that really doesn't suit them. So if you come to, you mentioned toiletries, I can talk about, again, the food industry. Their physical needs are very different. As I said, their imagery needs are very different. So it is important that brands start customizing products, both from the delivery perspective, whether it's nutritional, physical, or whatever. At the same time, from the way the product is communicated. Because again, these are kids who are going through immense changes in their physicality. At the same time, they're emotionally very, very different. They're very sensitive. And what happens is, if you try to give them products which are suitable for kids, it does not satisfy them at all. They may want to use the adult products, but it does not fit them. Even in clothes, as you rightly said, I really struggled a lot when my daughter was 11, 12, even now 13, because she did not want to wear kiddie clothes, but she was tall, but her body was not an adult, and we always struggled. So I think it's very, very important, and it's the right time to acknowledge this particular segment, which is, we call it tweens when they're 10, 11, 12, and teens when they turn 13 to about 15, 16. And customize products from every perspective, the physical delivery, the format. When it comes to food, they're more outdoorsy, they need convenient formats. So, how do you have the format which looks more aspirational? And as I said, when you talk to them, when marketers realize that, I think there will be a lot of gain to get, from this particular segment, because they are also far more, if you talk to them the right way, they are far more loyal, because this is a brand which understands them and they would probably try to stick with it. And of course, the peer pressure works very well in this case. So therefore, word of mouth works very well. So I think it's an important segment which marketers have to take cognizance of. And the sooner they do it, the better it will be.
So I totally agree with your point about how savvy this particular segment is, and what a disaster it is to actually ignore them.
I think a lot of time, because I deal with brands, they leave out this segment because they themselves don't understand that, because the teen phase, from a very psychological developmental perspective, is interesting. And when you call them flippant, and when you call them, they don't really understand, you're actually distancing yourself from this particular target segment. And I can say that because I've done a lot of work with Disney and Nickelodeon and even with V Channel. And sometimes because you're afraid of it, the fear also pans out by not really addressing the needs of this segment as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, just to add, this is the time when many brands see a lot of lapsage happening. And then, you try to use other excuses to see why the product is not being used. But it is simply because this age group is different and what you design doesn't work for them. So absolutely, you need to take charge of this segment as well.
Ruchira, my next question is for you. With 94% users on smartphone, now this is a world where, the screen has become a mom's doorway to the world, but social media has also kind of become her psychotherapist, because she can be herself on social media. She can either indulge in fantasy or be herself, be aspirational. I'm just wondering, and I'd love to know your perspective, can brands also converse with her at this level?
Absolutely. I think brands are trying very hard. Sometimes they do a rather ham-handed job of it. So, they sound like a very tried and, very, very trite story rather, one that's not very engaging. But to your point, I had a slightly different view, Parul. I don't think social media is not judgmental, and I don't think it's always a great therapist. A lot of mums who go onto social media will also talk about how they get feelings of inadequacy. They get feelings of, so-and-so's kids are much smarter. I mean, they're always posting these pictures of their kids winning some medal or coming first in class, and my child, and, these inevitable comparisons. So I think sometimes mums also need to just take it easy. I know that for myself, I used to go off social media for large periods of time because I didn't want to constantly compare my child against someone else's vision of what good childhood is or isn't. I wanted to be able to talk to her and work with her on it. It's not something, and every child is different, every family is different, and your own ideas of what's good, what's bad are different. I think, therefore, even for mums, I'd say more so for mothers, social media can be a double-edged sword. So it can be a great help if you're in a supportive group that helps put out authentic facts and not just, fiction around what should and shouldn't happen. The kind of fear-mongering that sometimes happens, be careful, this is happening, this is going around. And, you need to just step back and say, relax. Reach out to networks that are authentic. That's why networks like Momspresso took off so well, because I remember in its earlier avatar, again, I signed on to it because I had no idea about so many things, and it became a forum where there were other people who just wanted to help with no agenda and no judgment. So you could put up a really silly question and you'd be fine. People would say, hey, you know what, don't worry, this is a solution. I think so it is a great place to come to get solutions, to talk, to share, especially if you're in a group of people with common interests. We call them digital tribes. And what digital tribes are people who are connected by interests, by values, and by the way they feel. And actually brands, when they talk to these tribes, because you're associating basis values, you're associating basis interests, you're not just doing it because this is a mom who's between the age of 25 and 45 and has 2 kids. And therefore I want to target her with this particular, her consumption of, let's say, eggs will be X amount per week. So let's target her on this communication. You actually talk about values and what you stand for, and therefore it suddenly becomes a meaningful conversation. How do you sneak an egg into a child's meal every day, for example, becomes an interesting conversation. Because remember, moms today, you said it, you're doubling up with homeschooling. You're cooking for maybe 4 or 5 people at home. I'm not saying you're the only person doing it, but certainly the burden of planning menus, which is the most stressful thing in the world, falls on you. Then you may not have the help coming home. So a lot of women I know at work today are more stressed than they would be if they came to work. So it is a very, very stressful world. And if you can talk, share, find out like these quick hacks, use something which is a quick turnaround in your oven, or a spread that gets onto something, and you can create a little culinary delight for your family with very little effort. I think these kind of hacks are what digital media and social can do for you. But find the right group. I always say that don't get into a group that's about negativity, about judgment, calling names. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Meghna, whether it is on social media or beyond, a lot of respondents in the survey talked about being judged, about how the child is a reflection of your parenting skills, and that includes what you are providing for your child. But advertising has also played a role in judging moms, that okay, if you're not buying this product, you're not quite the right mom, or you're not being a good mom. What do you think needs to change there? And I know there's been a sea change already happening, but what else would you recommend?
Actually, I'd expand this not just to mums in the role of, a parent kind of a role, but I think it's more women in general.
Women in general, for sure.
I see less of a concern in mums being very criticized. I think I see it more of a utopian mom who's painted and makes you feel a little less, versus the negative side of you're a bad mom if you don't do this. It's the reverse is what I see. But as a woman, I see a lot more, where it's a lot more about if you do this you're good, and if you don't do this you are not. I think this is very real. It is changing, but not fast enough possibly. Yeah, so I think that's what stands out to me. In the role of the parent, let's call it, I really wish that brands brought more dads into the dialogue. Yeah. So and I say this because I think the dads need role models. There are dads who are sitting on the fence wanting to do this and be more of the parent, but are held back because of the definition of the mom having to do this. Yeah, there are some dads who are, let's say, better moms than the mom herself. Yeah, if you know what I mean. So I think that will help a lot, because if every single piece of advertising today, when it's about family, nurturance, etc., plays up the role of the mother, and she's the one who's doing the tada, buy this kind of product, versus if you bring in the dad into the conversation, I think that will change the language and bring more dads into the conversation, which will help mums a lot. So I think a lateral point to what you're saying, but this is something which I've been deeply thinking about out over time, wherein I think the dads need role models of other dads. The dads need the social license of being called out that this is the kind of cool thing to do. That's one piece. Another point on what you mentioned, Parul, I'd like to add is, when you talked about judgment, you referred to a lot of the external forces, let's call it. But as a parent, I also feel judged by my kid. And I feel living up to that benchmark, to me personally, has been the toughest. So if someone points a finger at me or, makes some kind of a passing reference, who's external, yeah, a friend, a neighbor, a friendly neighbor, my mom herself, or whatever, right? I somehow have my own version of the truth, which keeps me keeps me balanced. So, I know what my choices are. The toughest one is when my kid jumps up and says something, because I am adapting my style to suit her. And if that comes at crossheads, that's what that's where I need the equivalent of compassionate parenting to tell me what the balance is.
We're going to move to a very interesting part of this conversation, which is the rapid fire.
Wow.
Yeah, very simple questions, and of course we're going to put you in the spotlight one-on-one and ask you to just respond very quickly with the first thing that comes into your mind. I'm going to start with you, Trupti. What is the best career advice you were ever given?
Well, this was actually to one of my subordinates when she wanted to go to China with her husband, expatriation. And as soon as she got to know about that, 3 months before that, she started working desperately to get a job in China, looking at it. She had a 2-year-old child. And I told her, I said, this is your time when you can actually spend time with the child. And believe me, you will not regret. Coming from me, who has spent 3 years, when my child was 3 years old. And she did not like it much that time because she really wanted me to help out with some job in China, which I did try to do. But when she went back, she in fact wrote to me about a year back, saying, I was so happy I did that. And now she has a second child who's about 1 year old. And I guess that parenting is going to help her.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great. So that's a career advice that you have given. Right. Okay. Best kept secret about yourself.
Oh, that I design jewelry.
Oh, nice. That's something we need to do offline now. Where is home for you? And ideally, where would you like it to be?
So home is Bombay always, though I have left it almost 22 years back. And I'm a Goan, so I would sometime like to go back and stay in Goa.
Won't we all? Okay. Are you a window seat or an aisle kind of person?
Window, 100%.
Okay. I'm going to give you a tagline and you need to tell me which brand that tagline belongs to. Impossible is nothing.
Well, it's not Nike, but it is somewhat similar to that.
Adidas, you're close enough.
Adidas.
The product category is correct anyway. Okay, here's another one. Dimag ki batti jala de.
Mentos.
Perfect, absolutely. Great, Trupti, you aced that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Priya, I'm bringing you up next. The funniest reply to any of your survey questions.
So I was doing a ad pre-test and I was asking this lady, आपने ये ad देखी? He said, मैं तो TV नहीं देखती हूँ, हमारे religion में allowed ही नहीं है. A freako situation.
Okay. Where would you have put that down? I want to know in your survey form. That probably didn't exist. Okay. Your all-time favorite movie?
Many, but I would say, okay. No, that's what. Okay, yeah, Sound of Music.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Okay. In all your adventure experiences, what has been the most frightening experience?
Yeah, the deep sea diving, where when I went down, I was exhilarated and mortified at the same time because you have no one there and you think that you're all alone. Yeah.
Okay. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
Okay.
That's a tricky one. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Is it? Okay. I'm very clearly a dog person. So nothing, no conflict there for me.
May I just add, there is dog style leadership and cat style leadership, and I can talk about that offline.
And parenting.
And that's it.
Okay. Tagline for you, Priya. Very simple one. The happiest place on earth.
My home, but let me just try and McDonald's.
Well, you may have outgrown it now, of course, but I'm sure at some point of time it would have been high on priority.
Oh my God.
Disney World.
Oh my God. Oh, my favorite place. Yeah.
Happiest place on earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just add? I felt when I was at Disney Hong Kong, I said, God, abhi maine ji liya. I can go off happily. It's just that feeling that it leaves you with.
Imagine. Okay, another tagline for you: the taste of India.
Taste of India. One of those rice guys, right?
Amul.
I'm very bad at this. Yeah, I don't know why.
It's all right. That's absolutely all right. So, Ruchira, you're in the spotlight now. The most overused phrases at work, or the corporate jargon that totally gets on your nerves.
What's the strategy?
What's voracious reader? So, my next question is: what's the book on your nightstand now?
On my nightstand right now, one is How Brands Grow, brilliant book on brand growth by someone called Byron Sharp, and the other is I'm actually reading Zadie Smith on beauty.
Oh,
so
okay, nice.
Yeah, and I keep dipping between the two depending on the mood. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you now, what do you prefer? A complicated 3-layer ice cream sundae or simple vanilla in a cone?
A tough one. I actually had the most amazing choco bars recently, but between the two, I'd say vanilla and a cone. Yeah. Great vanilla ice cream, but I'm really picky about my ice cream.
Yeah. Tagline for you: play, laugh, grow.
Okay, I don't know this.
Fisher Price.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I'm taking.
It's been a while though, in my defense.
I'm
18-year-olds.
say that I seem to be taking everybody back to some nostalgia. We're not out of touch.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. Sab kuch bikta hai.
OLX?
OLX, that's right. So Meghna, the rapid fire spotlight is now on you. I asked Trupti about the best career advice. I'm asking you about the worst career advice that you were ever given or that you have given. Either way.
Sorry, I only have the other one. I'm not going to answer this question. I will answer the best career advice question.
Best then.
So this was soon after I finished business school, and I was with Hindustan Unilever then, and they were deciding, you get posted in like different parts of the country, and I had done a training in Chennai, and I'm from Chennai. So my mother, grandmother, grandfather all sitting together, and mom was like, you know what, I hope you get a Chennai posting, then you'll stay at home. My grandfather was sipping his cup of chai, and he is the person, when he speaks, everyone just kind of listens. He just looks up and says, no. You will not come back to Chennai. This is the time and age for you to explore, get to know yourself, challenge yourself, push yourself out of your comfort zone, pick the farthest place that you can go from here, and that's when you will learn. As he said that, and this is just, remember this like some 20-something years ago, and I was kind of probably the only area sales manager who was a woman, and I took a posting in Punjab where I didn't even know Hindi. And what gave me the courage to do it was what my granddad said. And my granddad saying that also meant that everyone in my family had to be supportive of this choice. So I will never forget that ever. And the only suggestion that I would pass back is this: just push yourself, be uninhibited, and step out of your comfort zone.
Get out of your comfort zone. Absolutely. Really good advice. Okay, next question. What would we find you doing in your me time?
I'm extremely extroverted, so you're going to find me surrounded by people, virtual or real, notwithstanding.
Nice. Okay, funniest moment at work and relating to a mom or otherwise? Relating to being a mom or otherwise?
I shaved my head beginning of last year. I have a boss who is like almost there naturally. So the cutest selfie that I have is when I shaved my head. There's me and my boss both in like grey t-shirt, jeans and sneakers, sporting the same look. So quite epic.
Twinning. Inadvertent twinning. Okay, quick question for home chores. Are you a delegate? Are you a better delegator or a better multitasker? Sorry, Priya.
100% delegate. 100%.
I was apologizing to Priya for using the word multitasker, but I don't have an alternative for it right now. Okay, taglines, Meghna. When you care enough to send the very best, which brand?
Say that again.
When you care enough to send the very best.
Blank.
Hallmark cards.
Wow.
Like
That's
your one.
I've sent a card. Oh, Hallmark.
Okay, simple one. Bajate raho.
I'm just
Radio.
When you're in the spot like this, that happens. But yeah, that one.
Radio channel.
It is. It's Red FM.
Okay, thank you. I think I could answer everybody else's. I just couldn't answer my own. This is quite embarrassing.
No, this always happens. Yeah, this always.
Thank you so much for joining us with this roundtable. Ruchira, Trupti, Priya, Meghna, all of your perspectives have been extremely interesting and very, very valuable. And I'm sure there'll be lots of learnings for all those. Thank you so much for joining us.